All right, so I want to welcome you all to the presentation tonight on the do's and don'ts when leasing your property. But before we even start, I can't see anybody in the chat or any faces. So if you have any questions, go ahead and unmute yourselves or put it in the chat, and Dan will monitor that for me. But cheers to, happy first of the month to all my investors out there. Cheers to you. I love getting that passive income. So today is our day. So cheers. As far as me, I pretty much know everybody on the call or have interacted with you in some capacity, but I'll just cover it real quick. I've been a realtor since 2010. Got my broker's license in 2019 and opened up Service Search Real Estate. We operate in the Southeast Louisiana market, so we're talking Baton Rouge all the way to New Orleans and anywhere in between. Graduated from LSU for undergrad, UNT out in the Dallas area, Denton specifically. And I've been a real estate investor since 2018. Right now, I have an ownership interest in 253 properties. 253 units. My preferred strategy is the buy and hold strategy. That's the best for long-term generational wealth, in my opinion. I do some lending out of my self-directed IRA. Typically, I'll lend to real estate investors, but I have done to like other things like a bar owner and a guy who basically fixes and flips cars. So I get a little creative with that. Authored 2 books. I put out 2 books this year. One that teaches you how to get out of rat race via real estate investing, and then another one basically how to sell your home in any market with or without a realtor. So I'm proud of that. Put both of those out this year. Then I also have I'm the co-host of the Financial Flows podcast. So in that podcast, please check us out. But we cover all things from personal finance to real estate, everything in between. The guy I host with, he used to play in the NFL for the Saints and for the Falcons, unfortunately. But he got a Super Bowl ring with the Saints, and he's from New Orleans, wealth of knowledge. So please check us out when you get a chance. We're on all the major platforms out there. And then if you want to connect, Cousin Sales LA, that's my handle on pretty much all of the platforms. Instagram is my favorite. If you want to get a hold of me, I'll see your stuff on Instagram for sure. YouTube, I'm building on my YouTube channel. So if you want to subscribe there, that'll be cool. But it's going to be a lot of information over the next few months that get distributed to all of those platforms. And that's the company website at the bottom, servicefirstre.com. If you want to coast and you want to put some money in the Louisiana market, because we still have affordable properties here, definitely reach out there. That's the website. You can get a hold of me. And you can look at properties on there and save properties, yada, yada. Okay, so that's enough about me. Let's get into the material. So tonight's objective is just to provide some valuable tips for you to consider before leasing your property. Like I said, if you have questions, you can go ahead and ask them throughout, or you can wait until the end. You're not going to throw me off by asking during the presentation, so it doesn't matter to me either way. But it's important to understand these best practices just to ensure a successful and a profitable leasing experience. And I guess if you own property right now, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't, but you want to, put a 2 in the chat. I'm just curious to see what we have in the room. My bad, I should have asked that differently. If you have property that you're renting out, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't, but you want to, put a 2 in the chat.
We got lots of 1s, 1, 2, 2 2s. Andre's put yes. Okay. So we got some 2s and a lot of 1s. So that's good. So we got
a lot of people who are already renting properties. Most of the people on the call, I would say, based on what I'm seeing, they already have property that they're renting out. Cool. So hopefully, I'm sure a lot of this, some of this you probably know already. It may be a refresher. Some of it may put you on something new. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And if you have questions at the end, I definitely want to go over everything with you. All right, let's get started though. So the first being, do conduct thorough. Just know this, you cannot get your risk all the way down to 0. However, you can mitigate the risk by doing a thorough tenant screening. The goal here is just to avoid problematic occupants. So there are people out there that are professional tenants and they know how to game the system. I've heard stories of these types of people in tenant-friendly states that play the game just to get free housing because it's really difficult and it takes a long time to evict someone. So you definitely want to conduct background checks, credit checks, and contact previous landlords to assess the tenant's rental history. This can help identify reliable tenants who are likely to pay rent on time and take care of your property. So one of the resources I use here is apartments.com. on their website, they allow you to do background checks, credit checks, schedule like rent, where the tenants can pay for rent on there. They can do maintenance requests. They can do all that. And the cool thing about it is free to the landlord. Landlord pays nothing to do any of this. So I use apartments.com to do my background check, credit checks. I think it's like $39.99 that the applicant pays directly to that website. And what in turn you'll receive is an actual credit report with their credit score. It'll give you all the details as far as the background checks. It'll tell you all about, if they're a felon or not. They give you all of the details. And like I said, the tenant pays for it. You don't have to do anything. You can put your property on there and they'll market it to the third-party website aggregators to get people to see your property. So that's a very valuable resource that I use, and it's free of charge. I've been using it since 2018, free of charge. Another one that us realtors out here in Louisiana have access to, and I haven't used yet, so I can't let you know if it's good or not, but it's called Rent Spree. Rent Spree, that's with 2 E's on the end, Spree. I've heard good things about it. I just never used it because I felt like I didn't need to, because I was using apartments.com with success. So I've never used it. But I'll tell you, as far as the conducting the thorough tenant screening, so I had a bad experience last year where I had to evict someone and they moved out the day after Christmas. And that's my fault because I didn't do a thorough tenant screening. I had to evict them. Basically, it's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. And on the application, they put that they had 1 kid. It was a husband and wife, 1 kid on the application. So we kept having issues where the toilet was getting stopped up. And then when our maintenance person would go to the house, he let us know how bad the property was as far as the damage. Kids writing on the walls, how many kids are actually in the house. So we ended up finding out they had 7 kids. So 7 kids, 2 adults in a 1-bathroom house. That's a recipe for disaster. So ended up having to evict them. But I feel honestly, had I done my thorough tenant screening, I didn't call the references. I should have called the references. Now there's no way of guaranteeing that you don't have any risk. So they could have lied on the references and I could have been calling family members and friends. I don't know, but I should at least try. I didn't even do it because I desperately needed to get that unit rented. Unfortunately, ended up costing a lot of money to get it repaired because of how bad the situation was once they were evicted out of the house. And I'll show you that part of my lease in a little detail later. But yeah, definitely do your thorough tenant screening. Very important. Don't ignore the legal obligations. So it's very important to know and adhere to local, state, and federal laws related to leasing properties. You definitely want to familiarize yourself with the fair housing laws. And I'll cover that a little bit later. Lease agreement regulations and eviction procedures to prevent legal issues and potential lawsuits. So I know one common thing here in Louisiana, and that's a new law as of last year sometime, where now every single property has to have a carbon monoxide detector. It's required in Louisiana. So make sure you are aware of your local laws because you may have something similar, not just to carbon monoxide, but it could be anything that you have to require or you're required to abide by. So make sure you look into that. In Louisiana, for instance, all properties, whether they're rented or like for rent or for sale, they must contain one of those carbon monoxide detectors, and they have to have a 10-year lithium battery associated with that property. So you definitely want to get to know whatever laws are in your state, local, federal laws as well. But I'm gonna talk about fair housing a little later. Dan, I see the chat. I can't see it, but I see numbers on it. So if somebody have a question, just stop me. The next one, you want to do create a comprehensive lease agreement. So you want to have a well-drafted lease agreement to protect you, right? When I started out with my lease agreement, I went on the internet and I found one, and obviously that's not probably going to be the best one, right? So what I did was I asked 3 other landlords that I was familiar with and that I knew, and I took a copy of all of their leases, and then I printed it out, and I went through and highlighted everything I liked in theirs, and then I put mine together. So basically, it was like the best things of all 3 of those, well, all 4, because I got one off the internet, and I put mine together. And I'm constantly updating mine as things happen. I'll show you in a little bit, but mine's is 9 pages long. That's what, if you want to rent from me, you got to fill out those 9 pages. That's what it is. So you inside of your lease agreements, you got to include like clear terms regarding the rent amount, due dates, maintenance responsibilities, who's responsible for what. and then penalties for violations, etc. There's a lot of things you can put in the lease agreement. I'd rather put more things in there than not, just to make sure you're covered. And the purpose of doing this is basically just to set proper expectations from the beginning. You want to protect yourself in the event you have to go to court. I've never had to go to court. I've had 3 evictions, 2 actually all of them happened last year. That's crazy. 2 of them the property manager handled, and then 1 of them we took care of.
We got a few
What I
questions
do
in the chat. You want to get to these questions,
go ahead.
AC? Sorry, I swept you mid-flow there, my friend. I apologize.
Oh, you good? Go ahead.
2 quick questions about apartments.com. Someone asked, do you use that to collect your rent? And does it do eviction screening?
When you say eviction screening, what you mean? I do it to collect rent, though. But what do you mean by eviction screening?
I believe, by the way, I think you need to make me co-host, by the way. But anyway, I think everyone has the power to unmute themselves. Can we just check that? Jarrell, do you want to just clarify what you mean by eviction screening? You should have the power to unmute yourself.
Hello, how you doing today? You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you, bro. Go.
The eviction screening is like, does it tell you like has that tenant has any had any past evictions?
Yeah, so that will come up in the background check that you do.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yep.
Awesome. Jarvis asked about do you use apartments.com to collect your rent?
Yeah, I do. I've been doing it since 2018, collecting rent on there. So I'll tell you the little quirk about it. It usually take a while, maybe like up to 5 to 7 business days to actually get the money in your account. So the tenant pays, and then it takes a few business days to actually hit your account. But as long as you have a buffer in there, it shouldn't matter. I just do it this way because it's less hassle on me. Like, I don't want to have to contact every single tenant every single month to collect my rent. I don't want to do physical. I don't want to have them mail it to me, because what that does is requires me to take the money and go deposit it. I don't want to do all that. I'd rather do something online that's easy for me that I can automate and systemize. So that's why I use apartments.com. But there's a ton of different things. I just gave you 2. There's a bunch out there. You just got to Google it and then do your research on them. But I can vouch for apartments.com for sure. But regarding the lease agreement, what I do is I have the tenant's initial by the late fees and then the tenant responsibilities for sure. Because I don't want them to come back and say, oh, I didn't know about this. Oh, yes, you did. I made sure you initial by it. So to me, because mine is 9 pages long. Will they read everything? Probably not. But I'm gonna make them initial by the stuff that's very, very important to me, like late fees and what they're responsible for. And like I said, at the end of the presentation, I'll go through my lease agreement and just highlight some of the items inside of mine.
Jonathan asked a question about, when screening property, I look at property owners on the county website and ask them who owns the property that they're renting and how long they've owned the property. So that's a good little bit of tip there from Jonathan. Leslie asked, how often do the laws change in cities or counties? Do they change more than once a year?
So that's
can they change more often every year?
I really can't answer that question. That's going to depend on a specific place that you're talking about. Honestly, I don't know.
I mean, reasonably, I'll give you an example in 2 states that I know of that they change more than once in 1 year. So they change more in California once than 1 a year. I could tell you that for nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to be possible for you to share your particular lease template, AC. I would maybe discuss that at the end. But sorry, mate, keep going. I interrupted you.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I mean, yeah, that's fine. I can share mine. I share with everybody anyway, whoever asks me. So that's fine. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we still got you, bro. We still got you. Keep
Okay,
going.
you had went out for a second. That's why I thought something had happened. Okay.
No, good.
So the next one, don't neglect regular property maintenance. You have to be proactive with the property maintenance just to preserve the property's condition and retain your tenants. So what I want you to do here is regularly inspect the property. You want to address the maintenance request promptly and perform the necessary repairs to prevent minor issues from turning into major problems. One tip I strongly recommend is having your AC serviced regularly. Obviously, it'll improve the system's performance and hopefully reduce the cost of a potential issue getting larger. I have an example that happened 3 weeks ago where one of the properties, the AC went out, and I felt bad for her because she has a 2-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter, I believe, single mother. And yeah, she called me saying the AC blowing hot. It was a Friday at 4:30 p.m. As you know, anybody you get to come out to the property over the weekend, you're gonna pay. But I didn't have a choice. It was either, it's hot, it's over 100 degrees out here, at least the heat index. So it's either I pay for somebody to go out there and fix it and just pay that surcharge, or I put it in the hotel. I got to get it fixed anyway. So I went ahead and called the AC company out. They did a temporary fix. They found out that the Freon was leaking because it's a 2-year-old property. So whoever did the initial install, granted, I did an inspection, but the home inspectors, they're general inspectors, they're not AC specialists, right? So he didn't identify that it was installed improperly. So anyway, the temporary fix, it was $903 or $907, the temporary fix, and to get the Freon back in the system. The permanent fix ended up costing me $1,075. So that's $2,100 or $2,000 to have a AC fixed, and that's unfortunate. So I definitely want to let you know you need to get those AC service at least annually, once a year at the minimum, to make sure that you get the useful life out of it, but also that the expense doesn't generate and become too expensive. Like that 2,000, I ain't gonna lie, I got it, but that hurt because that property new. I ain't supposed to be having no issues. Hopefully I don't have no more, but it's hot out there. I could not let her go to a hotel. I would have to pay for it. It would have been the right thing to do, is to pay for it. But I couldn't let her sit in that house either. So that's how it be happening on the weekends. All right, so do set competitive rental rates. So here you want to set something that's competitive, meaning, something that the market can derive, and to attract potential tenants and maintain a low vacancy rate. You don't want to get too greedy though, but you do want to return on your investment. So what I would suggest you do here is just to research the rental market in your area to determine what's the average rent for similar properties to yours, and to price your rental accordingly. Good websites you use is Rentometer. Some people call it Rentometer because that's how it looks, but it's rentometer.com, rentometer.com. It's a good resource to search for properties. You can put in your address and it'll tell you what the rent is for a property like yours in the area. It may be off a little bit, but it's a resource to check out. I believe they started charging recently, where they only allow you to get a certain number before they want you to put in some information to get get paid out of it. So check it out. Another one would be Zillow, but sometimes I ain't gonna lie, Zillow kind of trash. Sometimes they have like information on there that's old, that's not applicable, like as far as the for sale stuff for sure. They'll have properties on there that are already sold or they're already under contract. So I wouldn't rely on Zillow too much. The best person or people in this case would be your local realtor or a property management company. That's gonna be the ideal person to get rental rates. But yeah, definitely want to be competitive. You should be increasing your rates, like your lease rates annually. Something I like to do, it's called a nuisance increase. Not large enough to run the tenant off, but decent enough to increase my cash flow and offset inflation. So that's a nuisance increase. It could be $25, $30. You don't want to do something crazy. That way it scares them off, because once you scare them off, then you stuck with, finding somebody to finding somebody to rent, and also possibly having to fix something before the next person moves in. So try to stick to that nuisance increase, whatever that is for you. All right, don't forget tenant communication. So you must maintain open and clear communication with your tenants. All right, example of that will be responding to inquiries and concerns promptly, providing a reliable contact or point of contact for emergencies to build trust and just foster a positive landlord-tenant relationship. I'm not saying make friends, but this is a business and you should be treated as such. You should treat it just like a business. From any maintenance issues, make sure you have it in writing. That could be via email or at least through text. But if it's via the phone, make sure you recap that convo in writing, primarily through an email. You want to make sure everything is in writing. Do prepare for vacancies. So vacancies, they're gonna happen no matter what, but you should prepare for it in advance just to minimize your financial losses. What you could do here is set aside a portion of rental income as a vacancy fund. 5% is the industry norm. So 5% of whatever the monthly rent is, set it aside in a different account just for vacancies when they do happen. I hope that you can get, obviously the best thing is to keep tenants long-term, because that way you're not having to turn the property, you got the same tenant, but stuff happens. Another strategy for reducing the vacancy is just to market the property in advance while the current tenant is still living there. Make sure that the showings are allowed in your lease though, that once the notice is given, the showings can begin. And I'll show you how I cover that in my lease. But you definitely want to do that, because what you don't want to happen is someone gives you notice, they move out, and then you start showing the property. And nah, you want to reduce that vacancy. You want to limit the amount of time that no one's there. So by doing it, in order to do that, you want to start showing the property while they're still living there. Also have a plan. Have a plan for like the property improvements. Have an idea of what the repairs will be needed, what repairs will be needed, so that the downtime of having no rental income is limited. The next one, conduct regular property inspections. You definitely want to do this. And the reason I say that is because you want to be able to monitor the condition of the unit. So what I recommend here is just to schedule inspections every 6 months, maybe to a year, just to identify any potential maintenance issues, and also ensure that the property is being cared for, and identify or address any lease violations promptly. And I'm not gonna lie here, I need to do a better job of this myself. So I haven't seen this one particular unit, I haven't seen the inside of it since 2020. And I think the reason being that when I got to thinking about it is probably because I have no money invested, none of my own money in the property. So you know how it is, like when you get something for free, you usually don't take as good care of it as you would if you paid for it. This is just an example. I didn't get the property for free, but this particular property, the bird strategy was applied. So pulled all the money out of it. So none of my money is in the property anymore. So now it's just the bank's money and it's an infinite return. So I feel like maybe that's why, I don't know, but because I tend to treat this property and another one that I did the bird strategy on with not as much care as I should. Like I really never go in the inside. So don't be like me. Do conduct regular property inspections. That way you identify issues before they become big issues. I hope that the tenant that's been in us since 2020, she pays on time. Even when she's gonna be late, she lets us know in advance, and she lets us know she's gonna pay the late fee. So I hope she's taking care of it, but I could not tell you, like honestly, 2020, that's a long time and I've seen the inside. All right, cool. Don't discriminate during tenant selection. This one is huge. I want y'all to really pay attention to this one. So you want to set some type of objective criteria. What do I mean by that? Excuse me. So that could be, I want the tenant or whoever's going to apply, the ideal applicant would meet 3 times the monthly rent. They will have to gross that amount, from their paychecks, or they will have to have they will have to have a credit score of 600 or above, things like that. You want to have some type of objective criteria. That way, nothing could ever come back at you and like to question you in your specifically fair housing is what I'm talking about. If you can document your criteria, that'll make it even better. When you're doing you're putting it out there for lease. If you can document it, that'll be awesome to help you. You must and you have to treat all prospective tenants fairly and equally, adhering to those fair housing laws. Not abiding by these laws can lead to fines, imprisonment, and disciplinary actions. You want to select tenants solely based on their qualifications and the ability to meet those lease requirements. And so on this next slide is through real estate school, how I was taught to remember the protected classes when it comes to fair housing. So on the left-hand side, you can see it says fresh corn. Fresh corn, I don't know, it's weird, but that's the way I learned it, and it works. So fresh corn was the acronym used and how I learned it, but obviously familial status. So you can't say, I want a single, I don't want someone with kids. Can't do that. That's protected class and you'll get in trouble, big trouble. Obviously race, sex, handicap status. You can't say if you have a wheelchair, I can't rent to you. Actually, if they have a wheelchair, by law, you have to make accommodations for that wheelchair. If you don't have a ramp and someone met the qualifications to rent your unit, you have to make the accommodations for them. They have to turn it back after they move out. They have to, never mind, I don't want to get into that. Just know the rules, know the laws before you get in some trouble, because you can get some serious trouble. All right, everybody good on that? Actually, for all my landlords out there, I would take a screenshot of that so you remember. Or potential landlords, take a screenshot of that slide. That's important. Fresh corn. That's how we remembered it. But yeah, it's important. I tell you, the fines, that stuff, man, it sets you back. You don't want to get fined like this. All right. Do consider offering incentives. So if it's a slow rental market, then offering incentives to attract potential tenants or encouraging lease renewals can help. You may offer a discount on the first month's rent, provide upgraded amenities, or consider allowing pets, with a pet deposit, of course, to make your property more appealing to renters. I know apartments do this all the time to get their units leased, especially if it's a competitive apartment community where there are a lot of apartments, so the renters have a lot of options. They do all kind of incentives. So you may want to do that too, though. So consider it. Sometimes I'll even offer to renew at the same price. I know earlier I talked about that nuisance increase, but if it's a slow market, sometimes I'll offer to renew at the same price if the market is slow and I know it'll be tough to renew or a little tough to find another tenant. It basically, by doing this, it helps keep the vacancy down and reduces the turnover cost. Like, people underestimate how much it costs to turn the property over. What I mean by that is get it ready for the next person, like get it make ready for the next person. Having to switch the utilities back into your name, like, it's just extra. I don't have time for that. So do what you can to keep the current tenant in there if they're a good tenant. Don't delay addressing tenant complaints. Do not be a slumlord. I repeat, do not be a slumlord. Tenants are people too. You should be addressing reasonable tenant complaints promptly to maintain that positive tenant relationship. If a tenant reports a maintenance issue or any other problem, respond promptly and take appropriate actions to resolve the matter quickly. Don't let them abuse you, though. So if it's something they're deliberately doing, for example, like if the toilet continues to be stopped up, I used to have one of my tenants, one had that issue no more, she's still there, but the toilet used to consistently get stopped up. It was because of her, not me. Like, they used to put too much stuff down the toilet and I used to have to send out the plumber and stuff. Well, you know what I did? I learned from that mistake and I put it in my lease now that, you know, when they sign on a lease, everything is in working order. If any plumbing related issues happen like that, then they're responsible for it, not me. So you live and you learn. You'll begin to learn and observe things that are constantly happen. And when you do that, then you can start putting in a lease for the next person. So that way it doesn't happen. But I'll tell you, I sold the property in 2020. It was a fourplex in New Orleans. Man, 2021, I'm sorry, not 2020, 2021. It was terrible. Like, I went in there, I couldn't believe people was living like that. It had mold. This dude was a slum, the owner, he was a slumlord. I felt bad. Like, it had mold in there, they had holes in the wall. It had a big hole in the roof, like what a little whirly-bird thing go that ventilates the attic. Man, water just coming straight in there. He wasn't doing nothing about it. Like, I was about to turn down the business, but his ex-wife is the person I knew. That's the person I had the relationship with. So I went ahead and sold it. It's crazy that somebody bought it to house hack. So they ended up kicking one of those tenants out, unfortunately. But man, it's terrible. Don't be a slumlord. That was terrible. I ain't never seen nothing like that. You don't want to be like that. I think I was able to sell it though because rates were so low that it made financial sense just to buy it and fix it up, you know, for the long-term appreciation in that particular area. But damn, don't be no slumlord. That was terrible. All right, do maintain adequate insurance coverage. It's very important to have that insurance coverage just to protect you and the property. So you want to ensure that the landlord insurance, remember, there's a difference. I talked about this before. There's a difference between landlord insurance and just regular homeowners insurance. You got to make sure you have the landlord insurance if you're renting out the property. That landlord insurance obviously is going to cover any property damage, liability, and loss of rental income. In the case of like unexpected events happen, like a fire, natural disaster, or tenant-related incidents. Usually, if the property is financed, though, you'll have the adequate coverage for the dwelling, as they won't allow you to get the loan without it, you know. But I want you to pay particular attention to liability because that's you're going to be responsible if something happened on that property. Somebody falls or anything, whatever. You're going to be responsible. So you want to make sure you have the proper liability coverage, and that's going to be determined based on you. But you also want to make sure you have fair rental value. That's in the event something happens where the property is unlivable, then the insurance company is going to pay you rent. So you want to make sure you have fair rental value. That's essential, and liability. Those two right there, well, obviously dwelling. So those three, dwelling, fair rental value, and liability, that's key. You got to have that. Don't make verbal agreements. I can't stress this enough. Like, all agreements and understandings, they need to be in writing to avoid any misunderstandings and disputes. Obviously, verbal agreements, that's with anything, right? They could be easily forgotten or misinterpreted. So you always want to document any changes to the lease or any arrangements made with the tenant in writing. using addendums or lease agreements. So verbal agreements, I'm talking like just leasing the property in general. You want to make sure that's in writing, everything in writing. I don't care how cool you are with the person. Like I'm renting right now to one of my cousins. We on a lease, like we got everything in writing. I put everything in writing. I don't care if family or not. And usually I try not to rent a family, but I do rent to one of my cousins right now. But everything in writing, because you never know. It could turn into a he said, she said kind of thing. I don't want that. So make sure everything is in writing. And do keep, this is the last one before I show you some other things, but do keep detailed records. So maintaining organized and comprehensive records related to the property and its tenants is a must. Keep copies of the lease agreements, rent payments, receipts, emails, maintenance requests, communications with the tenants, and other related or relevant documents. This practice will help you stay organized, handle disputes if ever needed, and prepare for tax purposes. So what I'll do is I have a Dropbox folder for each property, and I save everything for that property within there. So I'm talking the leases, the insurance deck pages, legal documents for the entity that actually owns the property, the closing disclosures, act of sale, all that stuff. I save everything for the property in that one folder because you'll need to gather that information if you're ever applying for loans, for tax purposes. Like you just want to have all that information handy and relatively accessible. So, but regarding the drink. Regarding the tracking of the finances associated with the property, what I use is Rental Hero. I know y'all heard me talk about that before. I've been using that since 2018 as well. As you can see on here, it lists out all the rental properties, the tenants, the rent, when it's due. I know y'all see 400. Y'all probably looking at the screen. You see 400 on there. That's an office building, and I just lease individual offices. But anyway, you can track all your rentals, the lease ending dates, income and expenses. You can print out a profit and loss, cash flow statement. It's all kind of things you can do in there. That's the website on the screen. It's $95 a year, and it's free. If they have a free 30-day trial, and you don't even have to enter a credit card, so you can link your accounts. And anytime any like a credit or a debit happens on that particular account, you categorize it in Rental Hero to make the appropriate to the appropriate category. So like rental income or maintenance and repairs, things like that. The cool thing about it is at the end of the year, I just go to profit and loss and I print out a P&L for each individual property and hand it over to my accountant. That P&L lists everything, all the income and all the expenses for the property. So it makes it easy for her to do my taxes. And then also, that's my referral code on the thing. You can sign up for free, even with that 30-day period, sign up and utilize the 30-day trial period without even, like I said, without even using a credit card. So this is like the first page of this individual profit and loss statement. I think it was like 7 or 8 pages, but it'll break down all the all the income, as well as the categories I talked about. So like your mortgage payment, insurance, all that stuff, it'll break it all down. And then on the next few pages, it just goes in individual line item, telling you exactly what the money was spent for, things like that. So anyway, it's pretty cool. Check it out. As a recap, this is what we talked about conducting. The 14 items I covered today. You could screenshot that if you want, however, I don't care. That was just a summary. So here are all the do's and don'ts covered in the presentation, basically. I encourage you to implement these best practices and continuously educate yourselves to become more effective and successful landlords. As far as this is just some resources. So I have a podcast with my co-host that I talked to you about earlier, and it's just free game. So free game on personal finance and real estate. So please check that out. The Financial Flows podcast, like I said, is on all of your platforms. I talked about the 2 books, one on escaping the rat race, and then the other one on learning how to sell your home with or without a realtor. Definitely want to check that out. It's on gotincomestreams.com. And then if you just want to keep up with me, that's my handle. My preferred communication platform is Instagram, but you can catch me on anything with Cousin Sales LA. And with that being said, let me stop share real quick. I'm gonna hold on 1 second. Let me pull up my lease. I just want to cover like the important things real quick. All right, let's see. Okay, got it. All right, so this first page here, or this first
just before you do that, AC, I've got a couple of questions out of the chat. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's cool. Go ahead.
So do you have the same criteria for Section 8 tenants? Jarrell asked that question.
Similar. Well, when you say same criteria, what criteria are you talking about specifically? Because I do a credit check, and I do also do a background check.
This is the point where everybody gets the opportunity to come off and mute. That's why we left it off. Gerald, do you want to elaborate on criteria? It's cool if you don't. But...
And while he's, about to come off, something I want to know is you have to think about your property and the desired tenants for your property. Like if you got a property in the hood, are you really going to require a 700 credit score? And like you have to adjust based on the property and where it's located and the area. You have to.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like as far as I guess credit score and income, because like based some Section 8 tenants, they don't have any income because pretty much the government is paying for the rent. So would that be something that you look for if you do Section 8, or like would that just be like a pass? Like because like I said, Section 8 gonna cover the whole rent.
I got you. So I got 4 properties on Section 8, and I look at the income every time because in all 4 of these instances, Section 8 doesn't pay 100%. So they still got to come to the table with something. So where's that income going to come from? So that's why I'm looking at their income to see if they could cover their portion.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually got like a prospect, and the Section 8 gonna cover all the income. That's why I asked.
So in your case, well, let me tell you this though, because of the 4 I just told you, one of them, Section 8 used to cover everything. They don't cover, like they've been living there since 2019. They don't cover everything anymore. So you still probably want to look at it. You may not rely 100% on it, but you still might want to look at it just to make sure they have something coming in to be able to afford it in the event Section 8 changes their mind, like mine did. But they changed their mind because the person was making money. So that's why. And when I say change their mind, they just, instead of paying, I think that particular rental is bringing in 19, she pays 19 something a month, 1900 something a month. And she only comes to the table with 230.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you still want to look at it. Can y'all see my screen? Anybody?
Yeah, we can, bro. Yeah, we can.
Okay.
A couple more questions though.
Oh.
Leslie asked what the opportunity means for in the Fresh Corn acronym.
Opportunity, equal opportunity. That was just equal opportunity. Like everybody should have an equal opportunity.
Cool. That's exactly what Casey responded to. Just wanted to clarify. And Michelle just put a little point that says that she requires renters to have renters insurance. What do you think about that?
Yep, I'm about to go over that. Let me do this real quick before we do questions and answers, because I think
we got one question, Jarvis. I'm going to leave that question to the end because it's a big question and there's going to be a lot of different answers. We're going to leave that question to the end. Go, Ace.
All right, cool. So this is one thing I forgot to mention, but this is what I have all my tenants complete at the move-in process, because remember, they're going to give a deposit. So how do you determine if they left it in better or worse condition than it was when they moved in, right? So you have to document the condition when they moved in. So I have them basically complete this form saying any damages, like when they moved in the property, whatever was wrong with the property, they need to put it right here. Because if they don't list anything right here, and then when they move out, I'm gonna go back to this form. If they're saying that something happened while it was like that when I moved in, well, it ain't on here. So I'm gonna deduct it from the security deposit. So make sure you're getting them to fill out something. It don't have to look like this. It could be way more in detail, way less. I don't care. It's up to you. But just make sure you're documenting the condition of the property when they moved in. Just like a apartment complex would. They make you do the same thing. You want to know what it was when they moved in, so that way you can hold them liable for any damages when they move out. And I'm not talking about just wear and tear stuff. I'm talking about, the bigger stuff. All right, so that's the premises condition move in. All right, so this is my lease. I always have this little header up here where the last time I updated it, that's just something I like to do. So this one hasn't been updated in 2 years. This is my lease, and I highlighted some areas that I want to cover real quick. So remember earlier, I said that I evicted somebody on December 26th, that they moved out on December 26th. This is why, like, they only listed one child here. It turns out they had 7. So you want to make sure that you document in your lease who is going to occupy the premises. And list everybody right here. You meet whoever that immediate family is, have them list that out. Because it clearly says here, no part of the premises shall be used at any time during this agreement for the purpose of carrying any business, yada, yada, yada. My bad, that's not the part I was thinking about. But anyway, you want to have something on here to cover this part, because if they're operating a business on your property and something happens and the insurance company finds out, well, you know how insurance companies are, they find reasons to deny you, right? So I specifically say here, you can't operate a business on my premises. So they have to, sign an initial list. The part I was talking about with the immediate family is further to the end, but I'll get to that in a second. I don't allow pets on my premises, on my properties. Let me just say properties. I don't allow pets on my properties, so I make sure they know that in here. I list out the appliances that I provide. So like whatever it is, refrigerator, microwave, dishwasher, you have to put that here, or you should put that here. You don't have to do anything. You should put that here. And the reason being is because you want to document, like think about when you own too many properties and you forget what's yours and what's theirs. So you want to have that documented somewhere. Rent, I have them initial right here on the side, like what the rent is on the 4th day of the month is considered late. So I give them a 3-day grace period. An immediate late fee of $75 is assessed. And then each day after that is $20 per day. I have them initial that, so they can't say, oh, I didn't know. Well, you read it, you had to read it, or you initial when you should have read it. All right, so make sure you have that. I have on here, I give myself the option. If I don't get the full rent by the 5th, including the late fees, then I can proceed with evictions. Every state is going to be different. Louisiana is a landlord-friendly state. So wherever you are, it could be different. So you want to make sure you're knowledgeable of your local laws regarding that. Initial payment, this would be if they were moving in on any other day but the 1st. So it'd be prorated. So you fill that in. Deposit, how much they gave you for the deposit. Obviously the length of the agreement, and it says they must give a 30-day written notice. So you can do whatever you want. I choose 30 days. Utilities, who's responsible for what? So on here it's saying that the tenant is responsible for all of this. All right, so that's the part I want to definitely talk about, the tenant responsibilities. Let me make this bigger. There we go. So tenant responsibilities. So in here, I'm saying that the tenant must maintain the lawn and neutral areas, including mowing, weeding, edging, and other reasonable maintenance as needed. So they're responsible for doing the grass, not me. They also have to keep the yard and curb free of trash. Keep the trash at the end, at the rear of the property, except for on collection days. Replace the AC filters at least every 3 months. Honestly, I should probably do it more than that, but you got to think about it, like the tenants don't care for your property. Most tenants don't care for your property like you would. So this one is key, because if they're not changing those air filters out, it's making your system work harder, which is gonna break. And then who's responsible for fixing it? You are. So it says tenant agrees to pay for appliance service if service is caused by filters not being changed. So you make sure they initial right there that they're responsible for changing those air filters. Because if I send out an AC tech and they tell me it's breaking because of them not changing the filter, then I can always refer back to the lease. Like, you're responsible for paying because you said or you agreed to change the filter every 3 months. And it depends on the AC too. Some of them have little flimsy filters, like the small ones, the 1 inch, and then some of them have the 4 and 5 inch. So the 4 and 5 inches ones, they last longer, like 6 months. So it just depends on what you have. Right here it says they cannot make any alterations, additions, or improvements to the premises without my approval and written approval. So this is like and I honestly, I had someone add a fence to my property last year without my approval. She said she didn't know. Obviously, people don't read, they just sign. So I wasn't tripping because it was a nice fence and all it did is improve the value to my property in this case. But yeah, you want to make sure that they get an approval. You want to make sure you require them to have written approval before they make any alterations or additions. Tenant insurance. I think it was Michelle just mentioned that. Somebody just mentioned it. This is my way of saying, look, I carry insurance for the benefit of me in the interest of the property only. They're responsible for protecting their own property and they must obtain renter's insurance to protect their interests. Now, do I actually follow up and see if they got it? No, but I'm putting in here that they must obtain it. So they're agreeing to obtaining it. So if something ever happens, hurricane, flood, whatever, and they're expecting some kind of relief from me, nah, you agreed to get renter's insurance and it's cheap, like $10 a month. They need to get it though. It's not on me, and I underline that, must obtain. All right, so the landlord shall have the right to enter the property at reasonable times for the purpose of inspecting and or showing to tenants. Remember, we talked about that earlier. You want to show the tenants before they actually move out. I'm sorry, show the prospective applicants before they move out, because you want to reduce that vacancy time. So, also I could, actually, I probably need to, I put 60 days in here. It's the same thing, showing the exterior and interior of the property to display, for sale signs, for rent signs, whatever. I put 60 days. I probably should match this with the 60-day notice that notice requirements. I have 30 days up there, so I may need to make that change. But yeah, you definitely want to have this in writing, those in the agreement, so that way you can show the property in advance. Tenants holdover. So this is month to month essentially. So if you're gonna allow them to do month to month after their lease expires, then you probably want to charge a little more than whatever the normal lease rate is. The reason being is, like, let's say in this case, I was charging $1,000 a month, and then I put $1,000 a month right here. Well, what's the incentive for the tenant to renew and do a new lease agreement if they're gonna stay at $1,000 a month? There's no incentive. So you want to make this a little more expensive to make them want to sign an agreement to keep that low rental rate in place. Assignment. So this is just saying that they cannot assign or sublease, they basically can't sublease the apartment, the house. They can't let somebody else live in there without my written approval. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. So violation of the following without written permission from me shall be grounds for eviction. No other adults or children reside in the premises other than those specified on the rental application. So they only had one child on there. It turns out it was 7. So that's grounds for eviction because they're messing up the property. No home or commercial business. We talked about that already. Tenant is responsible for repeated and extensive repairs caused by the tenant's negligence that is above normal wear and tear. So that's like getting the toilet constantly stuck, by putting too much toilet paper in there, by putting products in there, just things that don't need to be going down the toilet. Tenant must inform the landlord immediately of any maintenance issues that may create a health or safety issue to cause damage to the property. And the tenant is going to be responsible for failure to prevent those issues to me. And then this is the other one I was talking about. Tenant agrees that there are no current plumbing leaks, slow drains, or stoppages. From herein, the tenant is responsible for any of the plumbing work needed. This is key, y'all. If you don't take nothing else away from this, you must do something like this. Otherwise, you'll be stuck fixing any type of leaks and plumbing issues that honestly the tenant is causing. So you want to make sure that you include something. It don't have to be exactly like this, but just something to this degree to make sure that you're not on the hook for continuously sending out people to repair the same stuff that the tenant is causing. Let's see. And that's it. Just sign a date. Yep. Bam. So that's all I got. Oh, damn, it's 6:53. All right, cool. What question y'all got? Let's do this.
Yeah, we do got some questions in the chat. Someone asked, who do you get landlord insurance through?
You could do that through any insurance.
Who do you get it through?
Oh, I have different ones. Just depends on the premium. It's like right now in Louisiana, it's tough. Premiums are pretty high. So I just shop around who have the best coverage for the premium. I'm not
I could say the one that gives you the most items too. For example, I get more variables in certain insurers than others. They'll give you like more money or more months of tenant payments, for example, if you have like a vacancy or stuff like that. So shop around. Jarvis asked, if someone makes changes without your approval, what do you do once you find out? You're not going to evict that lady over a fence, right? But
yeah,
maybe.
It depends on the change. Like I said, with the fence, I was kind of happy. But if it was something negative, something bad, obviously I have grounds to evict them according to my lease. So I could do that if I wanted to. It really just would depend on the situation and what it is. Honestly, what I've been like, I went in, so I just renewed the tenant in August. I'm sorry, not August, July. And I went through the property for the first time since last year. And she had a lot of TVs on the wall. I was like, damn, she better patch, whenever she do move out, she better patch those holes back. That's all I know. It was a TV on every room. She put security cameras on the property and had like a TV for security cameras. I'm like, damn, girl, who you hiding? Like, what's going on with you? What's your situation? But it's like, I just hope she patched those holes. Well, I hope she better patch them holes when she do move out. Now, the cool thing about me, what I'm doing is like, I don't mind helping you buy a house when it is your time. Like, hold on right quick. Hold on. My bad.
Somebody's in trouble.
My bad. That's
Why
my
y'all
kid.
making so much noise outside?
So yeah, like I actually, since I'm a realtor, like I will help my tenants buy a house if they're ready for that. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like I'm cool because I get a sale out of it. And I get to kind of control, you know how it's a win-win for both, because as the tenant, if you had a specific lease end date, then you got to kind of like make all that work by the lease end date. But since I'm the landlord and the realtor, we can work things out to where you're not rushing to find a place, rushing to buy a place based on that lease end date. I can figure, we can work it out. So anyway, that's what I do too. I'm good with that.
Leslie asked, are there rules for the month-to-month rental amounts, or does the landlord have full discretion?
Full discretion, whatever you want to charge. As long as you can charge whatever you want, as long as somebody agree to it.
And Reggie asked, what sort of adjustments do you make to your properties to accommodate disabled tenants, if any?
Wider door frames, ramp, elevator, like
lower kitchen units.
Yeah,
sink access, all that kind of stuff.
But let me go back to the month-to-month thing. I just thought about something. So my sister, she bought a house in December. But prior to that, she was in Atlanta. And when she started renting her home in Atlanta in 2019, she was paying $1,500 a month. So by the time, and they increased the rent every year. Remember I talked about nuisance rent. They were not doing that. They didn't care. They just wanted their money. So they was basing the rent based on the area. So by the time she moved out, that same place she was paying $1,500 for, she was paying $2,400 for. Same exact house. Crazy. But that's how it is. It is what it is. It just so happened though, she was paying the last 7 months or so, she was on a month-to-month lease. So she was paying $2,400 a month. Remember I told you want to make that high enough to incentivize them to lock in a long-term lease, or at least a year lease. And she was paying month-to-month because she was looking for a house. So she was paying $2,400.
That happened to me as well. When I was looking for a house, that happened to me as well. When I was looking for a house, my rent was at $1,000 and my apartment was 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And since I didn't lock in for another 6 months, it went to $1,600 a month. Yeah, I had to get about it.
It hurts. Cool. What other questions?
We have, do you rent to immigrants or people that don't have social security number? There's no way to run a credit check.
I've never had that. I don't know what would happen if I had that, but I never had that.
Yeah, I feel like the answer in the UK here is guarantor. That can be tricky as well, because sometimes those people don't have guarantors, but there are a few people that have that situation over here in the UK, and yeah, guarantor is the answer to that. Somebody that you can run a credit check on, and then you have that person guarantee that person's rent. That's the way that you do it. So
good point. Good answer.
I think that's it. Let me just scroll up, make sure. Yep. And then just before AC goes, because I know he's going to duck out, we have one big question from Jarvis, which is the fun question, which is, do you have different LLCs for each property, or do you have the same LLC for all your properties? And I think if Tracy was on here, she'd give one answer. Me and AC are going to give another answer. So let's just quickly do that before we close out for the evening.
All right. So the easy answer is it depends. So like I'm all right. So I have, for the most part, it's an LLC per property for the most part. However, I do have one that owns 5. So what at the beginning I didn't know. I would just do it 1 per property because that's just, I'm green to it. I don't know. But anyway, what I would say now, the advice I would say now is to base it off your equity in the property. Because think about it like this. If something happened and you get sued, they're going to come for the equity. They can't come for the property. They just come for what you own, like the equity you have in the property. So I would look at it from the standpoint of how much equity do I have per LLC? If you have like one LLC that owns 10 properties, but you don't have much equity in there, that's nothing nobody could get anyway. But you do want to talk to an attorney. I'm no attorney, so that's my disclaimer. Talk to an attorney on your specific individual situation, but it's going to depend. I'm more so of the equity piece, like how much equity can someone come after? Because like in Louisiana, for instance, it's only $30 to renew your LLC every year, as opposed to California. I think it's like $600 or $800. that could add up quick when you have multiple LLCs. So $30, I don't mind paying $30 8 times, 9 times, whatever. But in California, I ain't paying $800 or $600, whatever it is, for all those LLCs. So it really just gonna depend on the person and your risk tolerance. So, but talk to an attorney. Like I said, the standpoint I come from is the equity piece. Like, how much equity do you have? What can people actually go after, and go from there?
Yeah, there's a few different. I'll just expand. I know for certainly. Let me give Tracy's point of view. I know she's not on here. I don't think she'll mind me saying that she has a number. Her number is $1 million. So she has $1 million worth of property, and once she reaches that number, if it's 2 properties, 10 properties, however much, once she reaches that number, she then moves into another LLC. So that's her way of dealing with liability. I think there's 2 things. Firstly, is your risk tolerance, like how comfortable you are with risk. 2, what are you using the LLC for? Some people are using it for what it's named for, limited liability, to protect themselves. So if it's in an area which is potentially going to have a lot of, issues, if it's a commercial unit, or there's it's like a property above a commercial unit or something like that, where you might have other issues, or if you have tenants in there, you maybe feel like they're a little bit more risk heavy. You maybe want to have one LLC for that. And the other thing is accounts. Like, your accounts cost money. You have to pay for your accounts to be done every year. How much are your state filing taxes? So those kind of variables that you need to consider. And I think personally, this is my personal opinion, is that also I look at properties like, what do I want to, if I want to resell these properties, or if I want to pass them down to my children, or if I want to move them out of my name and into somebody else's name. That's significantly more complicated to do with a property under your own name, and a lot easier to do when it's in an LLC. So if at that point, if you're going to transfer all the properties into your children's name, that's one conversation. But if you wanted to just give your kids like 2 properties to manage while they're in college in order to get some money or whatever, that's much more difficult. So it's about what you intend to do with it. So like AC said, maybe sometimes.
Look, I'll say this also. I try to quickly scroll through the chat, but as far as the lease, so this is my lease. This is what I put together based on looking at 4 other leases. But you may not like mine. I mean, you may want some other things. That's fine. But if you want a good, like, something to start from, I don't mind sharing mine with you. Just either send me a message in Telegram with your email address, or on Instagram with your email address, and I'll send it to you. But disclaimer, like, it's on you. If you use it, it's on you. Fully understand what's in there and change it to your liking. So that's pretty much it. Oh, hold up. I got a question. Hold on. Also, what are you? Oh, never mind. That's not a question. Cool. Anybody had anything else?
I don't think we have any more questions.
If y'all have questions though after this, like, hit me up. I like talking about this stuff for real. So whatever you need.
All AC's links are in the chat. The Telegram group is in the chat as well. So please, what's your mentor fee? There you go. That's another form. It's another stream of income, AC.
I don't have time for the mentor, but if you have questions, I can just answer them here and there. Honestly, I don't have a lot.
Yeah, we appreciate you, sir. You can mentor me. I'll mentor them.
I can mentor you through the podcast, the Financial Flows podcast.
Oh yeah.
Subscribe, follow, all that.
On all major podcast networks.
Yeah. So I appreciate y'all for real.